Are you all set, Teresa? Live and streaming. All right, we are live and streaming on YouTube and Zoom. This is our monthly all OUUC training. Welcome. This month's topic is safety. And so as I begin, I will light a chalice as we do. This chalice lighting is called a chalice lighting for when things aren't okay. My beloved people, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you that everything is going to be okay. That there is no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, and so I won't tell them to you. But now, our chalice is lit. And so I ask you in this moment to remember the words of Rebecca Parker. There is a love. There is a love holding us. There is a love holding all. By the light of our chalice, let us rest in this love. So I'm here with our emergency preparedness team, and I'm going to turn it over to the team to introduce themselves.
Thanks, Reverend Sara. My name's Kent Canny. Thanks, Reverend Sara.
Yeah.
My name's Kent Canny.
And I'm Neil Marsh.
Marie Arnsmar.
Jack Jackson.
This is the team. This is our wonderful team. Thank you all for being on the team. Yeah. So one thing that that the team will be plugging is that new members are welcome. And if you're interested, get in touch with Kent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Teresa, could I have the slide deck up? Okay. So I think, okay, yeah. So here's our agenda for today. We're experimenting with me having the power over the slides up here and Teresa having the power over the slides back there, so bear with us as we fight over the power. But here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about medical incidents, about lost or missing children, about special circumstance individuals, and then those are all going to be me, and then I'm going to turn it over to the team to talk about various evacuation scenarios and other safety scenarios that we might have at some point. So please, at any point during this is an interactive training, so if you want to ask a question or have a clarifying wondering, please go ahead and just, if you're in the room, wave your hand and wait for us to bring you the microphone. And if you're online, wave your digital hand at the tech team or put something in the chat, and the tech team will be able to bring that to our attention. Thank you, Teresa. So, yep, the emergency preparedness team. So first off, medical incidents. So as we said in the little intro to this training, do you know where the first aid kits are? This is the first line of response to a possible medical incident, is that we do have two fully stocked first aid kits. Primarily, it's in the kitchen. So that's the one that's closest here for all of y'all. And that's where we have a large first aid kit. There's a second first aid kit in the RE wing right outside the nursery. And so that's where to access first aid kits, those two locations. We do not currently have a defibrillator, so don't go looking for that. We might in the future, and then we'll add that information in. Now, if a medical incident occurs, we also have some like institutional paperwork follow-up that needs to happen. And this is any any accident or injury, no matter how small. We have a form that's right there by the first aid kit in the kitchen, and it's a accident and injury report form. And we ask that you go ahead and fill that out to say, what happened, who was it, where were they, This is important follow-up for us for many reasons. It is definitely something that the congregation wants to know if accidents have happened on site, partly just because it is a liability and an insurance and an institutional liability follow-up concern. Also, it can highlight future safety concerns. So if there are a lot of accidents happening all the time in the same place, we'd like to know that. Yeah. So please do fill out that form. If we need to call for emergency medical service response here, it is preferable to call on a landline still. And so if it's on Sunday, please go to the church office and inform the administrator, whoever that will be in the future, since Darlene will be retiring at the end of February. But inform them that we need to call EMS response, and they'll call from the landline. Now, of course, if folks feel the need to call on their cell phones additionally, I'm not going to stop you, but do try to seek out that landline call, please. Any questions about this? All right. I knew there would be at least one.
You weren't quite clear whether there's a plan for a defibrillator purchase of the congregation.
There's not yet a plan. There is a discussion. So if you have opinions, let me know, and you could be part of that discussion. Yeah. I saw another hand. Hold.
In the kitchen, the first aid kit is right next to the light switch as you come in off the hallway.
Correct. The kitchen first aid kit is closest to the hallway with the offices, right there as you go into the kitchen door.
Is the one outside the RE, in the RE wing, in that podium that's right outside that door, or is it on the wall?
It is right on the big wall of windows. There's a little ledge, and it sits there. Yeah. I think I saw another hand.
It's related to the other comment, but I am curious about what are the concerns about adding a defibrillator to our tools.
It's just, cost, and it's not something we've had before, so we have to decide whether it's... Well, and somebody who knows how to use it. Yeah, Carol brought that up. And, the training on it isn't that hard, but yeah, we would want to do a training.
I haven't had my nose into the first aid kits. Do they have one of those little serpentine-looking things that go down your throat for rescue breathing if you're trying to do CPR?
No, we have CPR masks, but not the stick it down somebody's throat tool. Which I'm sure is a technical term.
It's got a name, I don't know what it is.
I just wanted to let everyone know that we recently have added 4 doses of Narcan to the first aid kit that's in the kitchen. And the last time that we talked to the police about that, they said they've been having to give all 4 doses for some people. So that they've been needing to give 4 doses of Narcan to one individual. So that's why we have 4.
So I was seeing some gesticulating that people couldn't quite understand. So Narcan is the overdose response drug that we have 4 doses available in the kitchen. So Narcan would be something you would want to administer to a person if you believe that they've had a drug overdose. But the training that I've received on this, they say that better safe than sorry. You don't have to know for sure that what you're seeing is a drug overdose. It's not going to hurt a person to go ahead and try the Narcan. So if there's an unconscious person, try it. And we do have those 4 doses, and what Marie was saying was that some people may require all 4 doses. So if one dose didn't work, try another. Yeah. So Any other questions or follow-ups on medical? Yes, Lorraine.
I know at one point we used a wheelchair. Do we have other equipment besides first aid kits like a wheelchair if that's needed to help somebody move from one place to another?
We do not, and my preference, which I do believe is also the preference of the rest of the congregation institutionally, is that we go ahead and call EMS. When we want to move a person, that we are calling EMS to do that we're not doing that ourselves. The question online, that there is a wheelchair in the coat closet. Yes, one does live in there. It's not meant for moving people in medical distress, though.
Do you know the cost of a defibrillator?
No, we'll get into those weeds as we move forward with that discussion. Neil is making a guess, but we'll get further into those weeds as we get into that discussion. Yeah. All right, I'm going to move us on to lost and missing children. So, say you find a child wandering around saying, I don't know where my parents are. Where am I? Please bring that child to the church office. Don't go looking for the parents. If you don't know this child, you are not the one that brought them to church this day, just bring them to the church office. And if we have a report that there is a missing child, we will want parents to come to the church office to let us know that as well, that we're missing a child, and we can all begin to look for the child. So one thing that does happen fairly often in this building, because it is basically laid out like a race course that you can run in a circle loop, is that in actuality, parents who are looking for their children and children who are looking for their parents just continue walking in a big circle. Opposite sides, never finding each other. So just suggest to the child, if you see them, why don't you stop walking, come to the office, and stay there until your parent comes to the office also. We can all watch out for each other's kids in this way. Yeah.
I remember our policy in terms of whenever you're working with kids. In our church, we really try to have 2 adults anytime that you have a child in your presence that's not your kiddo, your responsibility kiddo. So it would be best if you also grabbed somebody as your buddy, maybe. I mean, if you're not in an area or there's not a lot of other people around, if you can get some other adult to be near also at the same time, it's better for our liability.
And Joanna's saying the other adult could also head them off. Yes, we don't want to be alone one-on-one with kids. And the more the merrier in making sure that that child is safely escorted to the office. The point about heading them off also, this is a community where we're all here to take care of everyone in the community. And if it does look like a child is dashing into danger, please do stop them. Stop. Don't go any further than that. We did at one point have a child make a dash out of a classroom and almost make it all the way out into the parking lot before somebody stopped them. And there were a lot of people standing in between who just sort of watched, like, what is happening? So feel empowered. Do feel empowered. You don't need to physically grab a child that is not yours, but you can stand in front of them and say, stop, don't go there. Yeah. So it's pretty simple, but it's just as a matter of like watching out for our kiddos. Okay. I still have the power. Okay. And then this is a circumstance that probably won't happen very often, but it's just something that I wanted to bring up so we know that it might. That sometimes we have individuals with special circumstances around safety. And there's 2 directions that this can go. We can have a safety plan for a person who needs more safety than the average person. Now, this might happen most often because of a domestic violence situation. So a person who is experiencing domestic violence or stalking or anything like that would possibly come to us and say what their circumstances are, and we in church leadership would help them craft a safety plan for when they are here at church. The safety plan wouldn't be shared out with the entire congregation for reasons of that person's privacy, but the safety plan would be shared with important touch points for maintaining that safety plan. So as an example, a possible example, say there is a family, mom, kids, and they have a safety plan concern around a non-custodial parent who poses a risk to mom and kids. They may craft a safety plan that would be shared with the RE teachers or nursery workers, the staff, and possibly with, say, the ushers and greeters team. That is a possibility. That safety plan would include copies of any legal documentation, restraining orders, or such. It would include a photo of the person of concern, and it would include what is our plan of response if we see this person of concern here at OUC. Now, that's an example of a possible safety plan, and it's also important for us to all know that that is an option, that we can do that. So if you know of anyone who needs a safety plan, please spread the word that this is something that we can do and that they should come and speak with an OUC staff person or me or Reverend Mary, and we can get that ball rolling on having a safety plan in place for them. The other side of this possible scenario of a special individual, oh, I have a question from online. Is there a difference between distressed wandering child, children with freedom, and how much freedom? What are the boundaries around that? Wandering child and children with freedom generally happens a lot, and those children look happy and are not in distress. The boundaries around that is that we typically are more comfortable with those wandering children in the public areas and hallways. We get uncomfortable with wandering children out in the parking lot, and we would respond more to distressed wandering children. Yeah. Thank you. So the other special individual circumstance that we might have is a limited access agreement. So this is a scenario where the individual possibly poses more of a risk for some, not to maybe the whole congregation, but to some within the congregation. Possible scenarios around this are that we have two individuals both attending congregation, and there's been harassment or something between the two of them. And we create a limited access agreement where the person who is possibly more of a danger to the other has to meet certain agreements in order to continue attending OUC. So those possible, for example, it could look like they cannot attend the small groups that the other person is part of, or they cannot, choose to sit within a certain amount of proximity of the other person, or etc. Again, that limited access agreement would be shared just with the people who need to know it in order to enforce it. Another possible scenario for a limited access agreement would be if a known sex offender were wanting to attend OUC, we would craft a limited access agreement around the children's programs, for instance. So they would not be allowed to, for instance, be in the RE wing at all without supervision, as a for instance. The particulars of the limited access agreement would be crafted for the situation itself. And that limited access agreement would be shared with a team whose responsibility was to monitor whether it was being fulfilled. So, questions about these special circumstances, either safety plans or limited access agreements?
It comes to mind that there might be some individual who we just don't believe should be here. Somebody who shows up with a shotgun sometime, or somebody who does something really untoward. What do we have as a limited access or a no access? Do we have any policy in place for that?
So, we'll get to disruptive, dangerous persons a little bit later. So if somebody showed up with a shotgun, like we're moving full into the disruptive, dangerous persons. But I think what I heard in your question was that, there also could just be that the person shouldn't have any access. That could also happen for a person who will not abide by the terms of their limited access agreement. They could lose the limited access because they're not abiding by it. So the steps would be through the Healthy Congregations team and ultimately the board to tell a person that they had no access anymore. And it would be usually conducted through that process of possibly first trying a limited access agreement, and if that wasn't abided by, then moving to a, we're sorry, no access. Yeah.
I only tell this little short story because it was shocking to me, but when I went to my dentist not too long ago, there was a young man in the waiting room that had a pistol strapped on his waist, and I said, I went up to the counter and I asked him, and he said, well, in the course of the discussion, he said that he had a license to do that. How would we deal with that?
We do not have a policy in place at the moment, and that is another issue under discussion. So we'll be working on that in the near future to have a policy. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there are people who legally carry. Yeah.
Sara.
Microphone in your hand.
Oh, can I speak? So Neil, do you want to cover that question? We actually do have a limited policy in place. Yeah, we can talk to it during.
Okay, yeah. All right, Neil's going to cover that in a bit. All right. So with that, those are my parts of this, and I'm going to turn it over to the team.
Reverend Sara, thanks. My name is Kent Canny. I use the pronouns he, him, and it's good to see you all here today. Thanks for coming. What I thought I'd do is give you a little background on the emergency preparedness team. We were formed in the summer of 2019, thanks to the good work of Ann Yo, so Ann, thanks. And we were originally formed to develop plans to develop how we would respond to an active shooter situation. And since that time, Reverend Mary's come to us and she's asked us to expand our scope and cover how we would respond to any emergency that comes up in the church. So we'll talk to you about that today, at least the evacuation portion of it. You see, we've got a fairly small team. We would always like other people to join the emergency preparedness team. If you have any questions or any desire to join, please contact one of us. We'd love to have you on the team. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about in being prepared for any emergency is be aware of your surroundings. Just like Reverend Sara said, know where the first aid kits are. That's an important part of it. You also want to know where your closest exits are, and not only for people who are in good shape, but also where the exits are that cater to people with limited mobility. You want to know where.
Can you
oh,
do
I'm sorry. Yeah. Sure. And you also want to know where some of our safety equipment is. For instance, the fire extinguishers, the fire blankets, first aid kits like Reverend Sara said before, where the manual fire alarms are, and then where the actual sound and light alarms are within the building. So I wanted to take a couple of minutes to cover that. So if you would. So here you've got a schematic of the church. Now on the left-hand side, you can see the classrooms in the RE wing. In the center are the offices, the spirit playroom, the youth, the kitchen. And then on the right-hand side, we have the commons and the sanctuary. The red arrows indicate all the different exits that we have within the church. And we're lucky, we've got tons of exits in here. If you were in the sanctuary and a fire alarm happened, we've got big exits here out through the front, or there's also an emergency exit on the side. But you notice the emergency exit on the side is only a one door, so it's a limited amount of people that can go through there. Well, there is one. And we're only required to have one emergency exit, and right now, that emergency exit is there at Cannon. So now, all of these exits in the sanctuary are good for not only us they're in good shape, but also people with limited access. You can go out the front and turn left, and you don't have to go up any steps. You can go out this door here, turn left, hit the new sidewalk we have that goes right and out to the parking lot. Leave by the courtyard. So I'm assuming that they mean on the diagram, the top portion of it where we would exit from the back of the commons and from the RE wing there. You see the three arrows at the top. And there is a way to go out that. You have to go around the backside of the commons, come around here, and then you can go out to the parking lot.
Yes,
Or
so
you can't go down the stairs.
There's one ADA accessible pathway if you're in that courtyard, and that is the sidewalk behind the commons. So if you're looking for the ADA accessible evacuation route out of that play yard, you want to take the sidewalk, there's a gate, and then it's going to bring you onto this patio here, right behind the sanctuary. If you are not needing an ADA accessible evacuation route, you can go down the stairs and the boulders and down and exit through the gate at the bottom of the children's play yard. That is not an ADA accessible path at all.
Thanks, Reverend Sarah. And then if you are in the RE wing, you can see over there that you can go into the courtyard in the back or come out through the front and make a right-hand turn, and that takes you up through a ramp and gets you into the parking lot. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about the other things. Yeah, Frank.
Are these exits marked? We have signs.
I think they are. If you look in the
there's
sanctuary here, we have an exit over each one.
There's exit signs at all the exits. Yes.
Sure.
Oh, okay, so actually, Joanne was pointing to the extra door in. So we have an extra door in this sanctuary that is not required, and it is not being used right now as an emergency exit. So it's not marked as such because we don't want people trying to clamber over those and hurting themselves. It's not an emergency exit either because people still could hurt themselves clambering over the choir risers. So we have 2 emergency exits. They are marked.
It is. But there's good news, and I'll let you know what that good news is. But in addition to knowing where the exits are, it's also good to know where the fire extinguishers are. They're always important to know and know how to operate them. So within the church, we have a fire extinguisher at the back of the sanctuary. We've got one inside the commons. We've got one in the kitchen. We have one in the nursery, and we also have 2 in the RE wing hallway. So, and I encourage you, when you get the chance, when you're not doing anything, to walk around through the church and familiarize yourself with where these emergency equipment is.
And Kent, the red dots on the diagram, those are the fire extinguishers?
They used to be where the fire extinguishers are.
Close.
So we need
close.
to update that. And then in addition to the fire extinguishers, we also have fire blankets. You know, you've always heard if someone catches fire to get them on the ground, smother the fire out. So we do have 3 fire blankets, and there's one in the commons, There's one in the kitchen and there's one in the youth room. So, is there one here? Okay. And then as far as the manual fire alarms, the little red box just above the seat in the choir there, we've got 2 of them here, another one up here. If, for instance, if for some reason there's a fire and the alarms haven't gone off, then you can physically pull those, and those are located throughout the church. But familiarize yourself with where those are.
Are those local alarms, or do they go to the fire department?
They actually go to a call center who will then alert the fire department that we have a fire. And I think that's...
One more question.
So with the fire alarms, is there a noise that happens when you pull those?
Absolutely.
There is, okay.
So above the fire alarm there, you can see on the wall a red box
Yes.
with some glass. That is a sound and light alarm that will come on. It's
Okay.
a very noisy alarm, and the light will flash, so you'll have no doubt. And those are located throughout the church. There's one in every bathroom. They're down in the RE wing. They're out in the commons, so.
That's great. I am new to this presentation, so I'm not sure about this. But if we were to have someone come in that was an intruder, I suppose you have a whole plan for how we would behave. But
Sure.
One possibility is to use the fire alarms to scare somebody or to alert people someplace else. So I just wondered, is that a part of the plan, or maybe
Sure.
that will be covered later?
It will be, and Neil will cover a part of that. So that's in general all this emergency stuff that you should be familiar with, where it's located, and like I said, just walk around. You know, I've been here for 10 years, and I didn't know where all the fire extinguishers were or where all the other emergency equipment was. So it's good to be familiar with it, walk around and get familiar if you get the chance.
All right, so if we do evacuate the building, one special issue is reuniting children with their families. So, so we do have a plan in place for how to reunite kids. If the kids are in the RE class or in the nursery care and do not evacuate with their parents, then the staff or volunteers who are currently supervising those kids will have a head count. That's part of what they always keep, is a clipboard with their current head count of who they have. They'll be taking that head count with them. They'll hopefully be grabbing an orange vest so that they are easily found. If they don't have time to get the orange vest, though, they will definitely have their head count and all their kids, because the kids are the important part. And the planned rally point, if at all available, is the sidewalk behind the shed, behind the bike shed. So that's the plan, is to take the kids there. If that is for some reason unavailable, they'll find another rally point. But the most important thing is that the kids are going to stay under the supervision of the person who already had them under their supervision. They'll all stay together, and it will be the responsibility of the parents and families to come to the children, and that's the point for reunification. Then they can sign their kids out, have that kid crossed off the head count, and they'll be then released into their parents. Kids are not going to go looking for their parents. If we are in an evacuation and you see a child wandering around by themselves, please work to bring them back to the group of children who are under the supervision of the staff. So that's the plan for reuniting those kiddos with their families. It's for any evacuation. I think.
Oh, no, we'll start through that now, Marie.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk through a number of evacuations, one for fire, one for bomb threats or gas leaks. We'll talk about one for earthquakes. And then Neil is going to specifically address a disruptive person and an active shooter situation. So let me start with fire evacuation. And say that we were lucky. About a month ago, we had the Olympia Fire Department's fire marshal come through the building with us and walk us through all the alarms, all the suppression systems that we have. And when we finished the tour, he said, hey, you guys have got a very robust fire system. You'll have no problem evacuating all the people in the building if there ever is a fire. So that was always good news to hear. So when we do start an evacuation, more than likely you're going to see that fire alarm go off. And like we said, that's a loud noise and a flashing light. When you see that, then our response within here is to calmly evacuate the building through your closest cleared exit, and you assist people with limited mobility as we're leaving the building. Once we get outside the church, we want to distance ourselves from the church, and we want to go to the outer perimeters of the parking lot. We don't want to mill around in the middle of the parking lot. We don't want to get in cars and try to drive out of here because we're going to have first responders trying to get in here to put out the fire. So we want to be out of their way, cleared out in the parking lot. Now, once the first responders get on site here, they'll have an on-site commander. And once they've been able to assess the situation, what we will do is meet with that incident commander along with church leadership, and we'll get further direction from them and hopefully allow everyone to get to their cars and go home. So any questions about evacuation during a fire? Okay.
We know the drill. Ha ha ha.
So now let me talk a little bit about a gas leak or bomb threat and evacuation. Yes.
I think this goes a little bit further than evacuation. So if we were to have a fire, like with the gas stove in the kitchen, for instance, would you respond to the people that are hurt? Or how does that work for immediate response?
So we weren't going to talk about that, but what we want to do, of course, is know where the fire extinguishers are and put the fire out as quickly as possible, because if we don't get to that fire, if we don't put it out, it's going to spread. So yeah, we're going to battle that fire as long as we think we can handle the fire. And it shouldn't take long for the fire department to get here. I think the Olympia Firehouse 2 is within about 2 miles from here, and so they should be here almost immediately and help us out. So
if there's a person hurt in addition to the fire to put out is the question.
then we are responsible for getting them out of the area. You kind of move them out to the parking lot, and then with the emergency vehicles that come, we'll have somebody that can respond to them.
Yeah.
About a month ago, we had a false alarm, and the monitoring people called the staff and volunteers that were on the list very promptly, and the fire department was here within less than 5 minutes. They gained entry with a key that we have up there within a minute. It happened really fast. They did a great job, and personally, I was comforted that if there was ever an issue that we would be okay.
Thanks, Marie.
So we have a question from online. How do you ensure that all the rooms and bathrooms are empty and clear?
So that would be where the emergency preparedness team would go and do a quick sweep through there. It won't take long to ensure that everybody's out. So.
Yeah, and that is part of our plan for the RE wings, is that, you know, the staff are evacuating the kids, and there is a supervisor designated for the final check that they all actually got out. One in the room and then more online.
Has the church ever had a training on use of fire extinguishers? It seems simplistic, but they have limited capacity.
Not that I know of. Marie, do you know? No, they are small. In general, it's fairly easy. You pick them up, there's a little ring on there that keeps you from accidentally depressing the handle. You pull the ring, You aim the nozzle at the base of the fire, not at the top of the fire, but at the base of the fire, and pull the handle.
Yeah. So we've got some comments from the audience, a little heckling, we say it's easy, but if you haven't ever done it, maybe it's not quite so easy. Remember, we also have the suppression system. So the fire extinguisher is a good thing to go for, but they already told us that we're really well set up with our fire suppression system.
Right. And the way the fire suppression system works is you'll see the sprinklers around here, and Deputy Chief Broussard explained that there's a fuse in each one of those heads, and when the temperature exceeds 160 degrees, those fuses melt and the water system comes on.
So we have this question online, based on personal training level a bit, yes. Teresa, when did that come in? Okay, so this was in answer to the response to an injured person. Yes, we all have different levels of training around medical response, and there are some folks here at OUUC who have more, and ideally they're the ones that would respond. Yeah, clarify those responding to an injured person. Yes, all right.
Okay,
Back
let
to you, Kim.
me talk about evacuations in the event of a gas leak or a bomb threat. Very similar to what we would have for a fire, other than you're not going to have the alarms going off in the building unless somebody decides to pull those. A bomb threat is phoned in, somebody would get that, bring it into the congregation and the rest of the building and explain that there's a bomb threat. We need to evacuate. So evacuations are very similar with a couple of differences. We still calmly evacuate through the nearest clear exit, helping people with limited abilities. Okay. Helping people with limited mobility. We would exit out into the parking lot. Now, a difference here is probably clearing to the far side of the parking lot is not far enough if there is the possibility of an explosion. So the best thing for us to do is, again, keeping the roadways and the parking lot clear, walk down the sidewalks on East End, probably to Bury Park, and wait there. And similarly to a fire, what we'll do is contact the first responders, the incident commanders, and hopefully once they can let us know when the building's cleared and when we can let people come back and leave the premises. So any questions about a gas leak or a bomb threat? Also, for a gas leak, Marie knows where the gas shutoff valve is, and we would definitely want to try to do something like that. Yeah, Frank.
Cell phones. You can stand up there outside the door and get service sometimes. Is there good service in Bury Park, or if people had to call?
Oh, people live around there, so I assume there's some cell service.
So it's going to depend on which plan you have. Some plans get better service here than others. And yeah, most of our cell phones don't get great service in the building, but some of ours are okay. I went outside the building in this whole neighborhood. I've always been okay with my Verizon service, but it'll depend what plan you're on, what kind of service you get in the area. Okay.
Okay, so let's talk about earthquakes. We in the Pacific Northwest are blessed with earthquakes up in this area. How many people were here for the 2001 Nisqually earthquake? Oh yeah, I was at work. I'm sure you guys were too. And what were the immediate actions that you took at work or school during the earthquake?
I heard somebody shout out, "Get under a table."
Yeah, so the guidance is still the same. You drop, cover, and hold. Get away from the grass, that's right. So when you look around the sanctuary here, there's not a lot to get under. You can get a few people under the piano, but that's about it.
Please don't fight to get under the piano.
But what you can do is you can get down in between the chairs and the aisles, and that's about the best we can do. Hold on to them so they don't move. And at least the top of that chair is higher than the top of your head, and it's going to hit the chair before it hits you. Another thing, Sarah, is we definitely want to extinguish that flame if we can, because that's liable to tip over and start a fire.
And we are burning alcohol, so it is less of a hazard if it gets knocked over than if it were an oil flame. And Marie is demonstrating that there is a fire suppression blanket that is kept in the pulpit.
Yeah. Another thing, probably get away from the pulpit. It's heavy. And that's true throughout the building. You wouldn't want it, particularly back in the classrooms when there are heavy bookshelves. They're probably attached to the wall. But
They are earthquake strapped, yes.
Yeah. If there's a violent earthquake, you never know how well it's going to be. The choir, Jack, I would definitely advise the people in the back row to get down out of their chairs in the front if it's a violent earthquake. Who knows, those chairs can tip over the back, and you never know about the glass. The glass could shatter, and that would be a real problem.
And folks who are in the kitchen, please be aware of the kitchen as a special hazard, because there are cupboards full of glasses and dishes, some of them above the level of your head. So kitchen is an area that needs more care if that's where you are when there's an earthquake.
Yeah, I'd say if you're in the kitchen, try to get into the hallway if you can, in a violent earthquake. Yeah, Frank?
What is the earthquake resistance of this building? Is this highly resistant, somewhat resistant?
You know, it's been built recently, so it was built to the standards in effect at the time.
Yeah, it was up to code. This end of it when it was built in 1991, and that end of it when it was built in 2012. So whatever the codes were of that time.
It's probably very earthquake resistant. The other thing I'd like to say is, of course, in the RE wing and in the offices, there are desks and tables you can get under. That's a great place for those kids to get under.
So the question that was shouted out, and I'm going to repeat it because we have to be on mic, folks. The question was, how do we know if it's mild or large?
Sure. So there's a wide range of earthquakes, as everyone knows, and some of them are very mild. There was one down probably 4 or 5 years before the Nisqually earthquake. We were out at a restaurant. It was just a mild shaking. It lasted for 5, maybe 10 seconds, and it was gone. And everybody acknowledged it in the restaurant and went on eating. And that's what we would do here as well. But a violent earthquake, like we had for the Nisqually earthquake, it causes damage. You don't know about the structures of the buildings. So if something like that, a violent earthquake occurs, then once the earthquake has settled down, we're going to evacuate the building. And we do it the same way. We calmly exit through the nearest cleared exit, and we help people with limited mobility. If it's a violent earthquake, you know, there's going to be so many calls for emergency response. We're going to have to be our own first responders. We're going to have to go through the buildings looking for people, making sure everyone's out, and we're going to have to triage or assist people getting them to the hospital on our own.
You know, we not only need to exit the building, but we have to be aware of where the trees are, because sometimes trees and things come down, so we want to get in a fairly open area.
Yeah, excellent point, Michael. And not only trees, but also any power lines that might be on the area. Treat those, if there's a power line down, treat it as live and stay away from it.
It's an interesting consideration that since, you know, the RE was built in 2012, the homes had to be strapped, or the homes and the commercial buildings like this had to be strapped, the walls to the foundation. So it just might be, to think about it, that part of the building would not have as much damage as this part. It was built before those earthquake straps were required. So it might be that, you know, when we think about our emergency response, that we would probably want to talk to the building officials or someone else who could help us with that too, that would be safer than this would. And like Mike was saying, if you go outside, I mean, some of the trees are going to come down. So it's not necessarily safer out there. It might be safer in a building that's strapped. That won't move. I mean, it probably won't move unless we have a, an 8 or a 9, and then everything will move. But
Sure.
yeah.
So I saw a number of hands of people that raised their hands that said they were here during the 2001 Nisqually earthquake. So I know that where I was working in DuPont, we all evacuated the building. I don't know. Are there other experiences where you didn't evacuate the building?
Yeah, I was over in Lacey, and the building had just been built. It was a WSU extension building, and it was strapped. The walls were strapped to the foundation, and it didn't move. We didn't know there was even an earthquake. It was incredible. Whereas downtown, just off Capitol Boulevard in a 4-story building where I usually work, there was tremendous damage because it was an old building, and all kinds of things came down on people, and people got hurt, and they couldn't get out of the staircases because there was a lot of damage just in that, just in a 6.1?
7.8, I think is what they said it was.
Really?
But it was deep.
Okay, so, just to say, the newer buildings, there's a lot of safety that's been built in them now. So it'd be nice to know more about that. Because in that case, that was a safe building for us. We did not go outside.
So we're going to pause, we're going to put a pin in this because we have more content and we don't have time.
Yeah.
So for those who want to go deeper into the weeds on the earthquake plan, I would invite you to have follow-up with the emergency preparedness team at another time.
Good point, Sarah. And, we can always make a call at the time as to whether or not we want to evacuate the building. So let me turn it over now to Neil. Is this a hard stop at 12:30?
It's not a hard stop. I'm just moving us along.
Sure, absolutely. So Neil is going to cover what we do in the event of a disruptive person or an active shooter. And Neil is an experienced retired police officer from Chehalis. He's experienced many things. So, Neil?
Okay. Good morning or good afternoon. I'm Neil Marsh. I've been with the congregation since 1988. It means the old building. And I did spend 26 years with the Chehalis Police Department. A year of that on the road and a year of that on the radio and 25 on the road. First of all, if you're going to say, why don't we do it this way? You're volunteering to join the team. I will snag you. So, okay. This is the nightmare scenario that nobody wants to face, that nobody wants to think about. It's also the least likely to happen. When was the last time we had an attack on a Unitarian church? That's correct. July 27th, 2008. Jim David Atkinson, who when he wasn't in his prison garb, which is how you'll see him if you Google him, he looked like one of us. He could have been a college professor. He was unhappy with his former spouse. And I didn't even think she was in the building at the time, but he decided to take it upon himself to thin out the number of liberals and commies and whatnot. And that was a classic, untrained but classic response that those folks had. If you go online, you will see 3 things in the event. Guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I should have talked about disruptive persons, but here we are. Flee, hide, or fight. I didn't get a chance to put those on the slides. It's my fault that they didn't get up there. But those are the 3 options you're going to be faced with. Let's back up to disruptive persons. That is a very, very wide description. It can be something from somebody having a fit, you know, angry and yelling, or just acting in a method or manner that makes other people uncomfortable, or it can be somebody swinging, or somebody, worst case scenario, with a weapon, worst case scenario for that, a firearm or a bomb. Those are the things that are the least statistically likely to happen. So I don't want this thing to take on a life of its own, because we'd be here till next Thursday at the very least, and we still wouldn't have enough credits. Okay, if the person presents a danger, we may make the call to evacuate the building. If the decision has been made to evacuate, just as we would for a fire or anything else, move away from the building to the outer perimeter, keep the parking lot clear for the arrival of police and fire apparatus. Don't try to get in your car and drive away. Last thing you want to do is run head-on into a patrol car that's coming in code 3. That would not be a good thing. So let's go to, everybody has had some experience on dealing with unpleasant or disruptive people. If you've worked with the public, you've done it. If Jack's worked in retail, and he knows what it's like to have an irate customer standing on his toes, complaining about the cracked egg in the carton. I've had uglier ones than that, but teachers, especially high school and junior high teachers, you've all encountered the student who's a little too large for his own brain and can be problematic. Even the small ones can be problematic. We know that. Do what you can to calm them down. Sarah, if I could use you for a model for a minute. I'm not going to stand like this. I'm going to stand at about a 45-degree angle. I've got one hand clear, right hand clear. Somebody else can come up a discrete distance behind them, not close enough to make them turn around and alert, but you can come up behind them, and if they do start going for the person they're talking to, you can come in behind them. We hope we never have to do that. But if it's there, it's something to keep in the back of your mind. Next time you watch cops on TV or whatever, you will see them do this interview position. Kind of at a right angle. Let's see. And again, that's so broad. We can't begin to cover what to do in every circumstance, no matter how well you do it.
Just to say that we have got a whole block of instruction on how to de-escalate situations with disruptive people. So, Sarah, if you wanted to put us on the...
Yep, that can be a follow-up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll get into the real ugly one. The person who we think is going to hurt somebody else. You decide you're going to flee. You decide to do what you believe you can accomplish. If you are old and arthritic like yours truly, I'm not going to tackle Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. If you don't think you can do it, don't try. Flee or hide. If you think you can take the person out, and remember, this is a person who has demonstrated hostile intent. He's coming in with a battle axe or a sword or a weapon, a firearm. Fight dirty. Cheat. Don't be afraid. You don't need to be kind or understanding or any of the things Unitarians love to do at that time. Once he's in handcuffs and secured, we can be kind to him again. But when he's threatening to hurt us or ours, be mean. When Jim David Atkinson attacked in July of 2008, he shot one usher in the chest. But that brought four or five other people an opportunity, some parishioners and one visitor. Jim David stopped to reload, and that's when they hit him. He didn't have a chance to do anything else. He went on the ground, and they sat on his butt until Knoxville PD got there. We're going to have to work in concert. If it does come to it and it's time to fight, the operative phrase is weapons of opportunity. Use whatever you've got. You go on TV and read about it, or on YouTube and read about it, they're going to say throw hymnals. Well, we got a cart of hymnals, but we don't put them out on the chairs like we used to. However, we can throw rocks at him. And I see me a nice weapon of opportunity. If you can be a hobbit and get him right in the head, go for it. Weapons of opportunity are everywhere. But your job is to, as best you can, stay alive. If you survive, you did what you could. If other people survive, so much the better. If it gets that ugly, if he arrives like that, oh yeah.
Yeah, so Marie is demonstrating that we also have an emergency pull that will immediately summon the police for armed intruder only.
There's one here at the podium, one with the tech team table, one in Darlene's office, and one with the children.
Not with the children, like
Well,
the children don't have the pull. They can't pull it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. My mind wasn't on that. That's technology from after I retired. The question was raised, what about pulling the fire alarm for help? That's frowned on because that's not the kind of help you need. And if you got firefighters come dancing in here in their bunker gear, and they're squaring off with a AR-15 and all they got's a fire axe, they're not going to be happy with you. So we do have those, do use them. Are there any questions? We're getting a little past our time.
So just a little bit of thought can really go a long way. One time I was here and I didn't realize that someone had broken in. He did not communicate. I don't know if he was on drugs. I told him that he needed to leave, and then I went about my business. I went into the workroom, which is the only office that doesn't have a second exit. I left the door open. So lo and behold, I look up and there's a man that won't communicate with me that I don't know blocking my exit. If I had thought about it for about 5 seconds beforehand, I would have done something different. So just a little bit of thought can really help, I think, for people to feel more comfortable that maybe they can handle a situation.
Thanks for that, Marie. So Teresa had some questions from online, is that right? Oh, they were really just comments? Okay. Chairs are throwable, yes, all of that.
Weapons of opportunity.
Yeah.
There used to be a panic button in the AV closet. Is that still functional?
No, that's been replaced with the pole that's in the pulpit. Same purpose, different technology, and the AV closet still has a pole themselves as well.
Let me wind up with this. You will respond the way you are trained, whether you're a kid in the classroom, a firefighter, a cop, you will respond the way you were trained. If you come upon a novel situation, your brain is going to rummage through and, quick like a bunny, come up with the closest thing to it. So that's what this is all about. Think about it ahead of time. If it's the first time you have ever had to consider the really uglies, you may go into panic mode, you may shut down. Your chances of actually successfully responding, no matter what the event is if you have thought about it. So, plenty of stuff on YouTube, lots of other conversations to be had. Just be thinking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. So I see one question, what does a pole look like? A rope, a lever, is it marked? Yes, so Teresa will zoom in the camera. So it looks like this little just paper loop at the bottom of a little box, and it is just yank it out of the box and it starts sending a signal. All right, so, ooh, it zooms so close. Wow.
You pull.
You just pull it out. We don't want to pull it right now. It just sends a wireless silent signal immediately to emergency response, and it's for an armed intruder, so they know that's what the response that we're asking for is. Yeah. So, and I'll just say that there are people who have been looking at these and thinking about pulling them that are sitting with them, and so don't worry too much if you're out there and you aren't right next to the pole. There's a person who's going to be yanking on it. Yeah.
And I test it.
And yeah, Marie tests it and knows that it works.
Goes to my cell phone to let me know that the test's been successful.
Yes, so what Marie said was that there's a signal that goes to Marie's cell phone when we test it, and then Marie knows that it is working and functional. So we went over time, and I want to thank you all. I want to thank the emergency preparedness team. They are fantastic people. They would love to have you join them. This is work for all of us. Safety is no one person's responsibility. It's all of our responsibility, and it's part of how we just care for one another. We're all here to love and take care of each other, and so thank you for taking some time to think about these safety scenarios that are part of that process. If you have further questions, feel free to reach out to me or the emergency preparedness team for follow-up. All right? Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you.
And we can have follow-up classes.
Oh, yeah, and we should organize various different running outside.
Yeah.